Hey, how's everybody doing? Alrighty. Well, it is Tuesday, August 5th, and I feel like I have to. I feel like I have to say the date because it's a busy week this week. We have shows every day starting today. So, Meet an Indie Agency is tomorrow. Raindrop. And who else? Why isn't my mouse working? Oh, I know why. There it is. Yes. And then we're going to be talking to Drake Cooper about AEO versus SEO. And then we're going to talk to Sarah Magnus at Reverie talking about the film that she did. We're starting a new series called Creative Oxygen. It's not, here's the thing, like, hustle culture, I don't even want to get into this. Just know that it's Creative Oxygen. So it's a slightly different take on like the side hustle thing. So, but first of all, thank you all, those of you who are members. Thank you so much for your support. For those of you who are not members, go to indieagency.news/join. You'll see what this whole shindig is about. And we currently have, let's see here. We have 4 awards, but the one we're doing right now, we have 2 of them. So one of them is Weirdos, Misfits, and Underdogs. We call that the Agency and People Award for the rest of us. Very, very simple. Yeah, People Awards and Agency Awards, they're cool. We're doing it slightly differently, because we like the idea of weirdos, misfits, and underdogs, because if you're an indie, you're probably one of them, 2 of them, or all 3 of them. The main deadline is on the 18th. The final deadline, September 12th. You can prepay if you want to save. You can buy 10 entries for $1,000. That's $100 per entry. You can use them anytime. Let's say it gives you some budget certainty. I like that. So that's what we're talking about. But before we start, I do want to take a moment. We waited 18 months to get the Preferred Partner Program, our sponsors, into the mix here. And the reason we did that is we wanted to find partners that we felt really good about, because they were able to demonstrate that they're solving business problems for independent agencies and solving the problems that, that old chestnut of the things that keep you up at night. So let's talk about media for a second. Running media in-house, it's hard to do when you got a lean team. So lean teams, that's indie agencies, right? And so the client demands, they don't change. So y'all know what I'm talking about. So you got the late nights, the platform updates, the constant switching. And this is where Path Labs comes in as your media execution partner. They've helped 50 plus indie agencies across 30 plus industries. They grow smarter and scale faster and without adding headcount. One of our markers is, for our preferred partners, do they work with indie agency news members? And in the case of Path Labs, yes, they work with Curiosity, and we're going to be doing more with them and Curiosity to explain a little bit about the power of this platform. And here's the thing. They've got 130% net dollar retention rate, 99.98 contract fulfillment rate. And those aren't the marketing numbers. These are actual agencies love working with us numbers. And so here's the thing. I've gotten a chance to get to know all these folks. So, it's not a platform or automation tool. It's experienced media pros who get it. So if you're ready to streamline your media execution without the sacrifice, go to Path Labs and all our preferred partners at indieagency.partners. You can see here, once you get over there, you'll be able to see very specifically the pain point that Path Labs solves, and then very specifically how they help the agency. And also, you'll be able to schedule a strategy call, no obligation, but very good for you to go through. So indieagency.partners. Thank you to Path Labs. We really appreciate your support. If you are interested in becoming a preferred partner, y'all scroll down here and you can apply to become a partner, and we will get in touch and discuss the possibilities with you. Joining us today, we had a good time in Cannes, didn't we?
Hard not to, right?
Well, here was the thing. So, there's a secret place that I go to that it's local. I mean, it was locals, right? I mean, it was.
Yeah, I had to get an Uber there. I couldn't walk there.
No, I know. So it's close enough, but far away enough that you could walk if you wanted to. But it's past the canopies. So on the
on a less sweaty day.
Right. Boulevard Jean Hibert, which is the Croisette of the real people. So yeah, there's this little like coffee / what do they call it? Like it's like a smoke shop or something. I don't know what it is.
Oh,
but,
is it a tobacco shop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good to hang out there.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But here was the thing. You and I finally got a chance to connect. So Amar, before we get started, I really want you to give people a little bit of your background, because I think it helps contextualize what you were doing and the philosophy behind Department of Creative Affairs. So give us a little bit of a thumbnail on that.
Yeah, sure. So look, I've been in the industry for 15 years now, 2010. Showing my age is when I entered the space. The bulk of my career was spent at a company called Contagious, which hopefully many of you are aware of. Contagious, as I would define it, is the global authority when it comes to creative excellence. By the time the business was sold to Cannes Lions a couple of years ago, it was very much a creative transformation consultancy
Right.
as well. But the thing that underpinned the business since its founding in 2004 by Paul Kemp Robertson and Guy Thompson was really about what was happening at the bleeding edge of the marketing and advertising industry.
Right.
What was breakthrough innovation looking like? What was best practice in these new areas where there was very little precedent? Like, who was doing great work? What are the trends and the technology supporting that? And really just almost like a hotbed of the 1% of marketing and advertising that's truly game-changing or creatively brilliant. And I think that's where my passion for the health of the industry, the quality of the work that we output comes from, having spent 12 years there. And it's definitely a lot of the kind of DNA and similar values with what we're trying to do with DCA, because we see the opportunity and the need to drive better outcomes, better partnerships in our industry, and DCA is a way of doing that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and first of all, you know what? 15 years. Look at you. Look at this. I mean, look how gray that is.
I've got him here.
Listen, no. No, but what's interesting is, you talk about your experience at Contagious, my experience at the Drum and at Adweek, and we both found something that we believe we could make an impact in and be of service, which I think is really, really important here. And first of all, the work you're doing is fantastic. We all know that. The thing that is really interesting is what I really appreciate is you doing these deep dives. And you walked me through a bit of a bit of the philosophy behind it. And then you tease it. You said, yeah, I got this thing on return on social coming. I was like, yeah, great. Let's talk about that. So here it is. And we're obviously in the recap, we're going to go ahead and link to this deep dive. But I want to start with, it opens with, and we're going to just hone in on one section because there's 6 different sections in here. So we're going to focus in on the first section, specifically about ensuring that CEOs and CFOs understand the reframing of social as being really an incredibly important part of the business, as opposed to an add-on. So again, people are going to be, we'll obviously link to this, but the brief has changed. Ad spend has changed. So what we want to do, and there's context. So part one, we are talking about reframing social's role in business. So walk us through what's different from this even 2 years ago, because the conversation, it changes rapidly almost every week, it seems, whether that's social, whether that's influencers. But the part of what's getting stuck for an agency in particular is, you know what, the C-suite, except for the CMO, doesn't really understand that. But let's talk about what's different first.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of background context. Like, this hasn't happened overnight, but
No.
a hell of a lot has happened in the past 18 to 24 months. And I think besides AI, the other key talking point at Cannes this year, and I think throughout the course of 2025 so far, has been how social and the creator economy is really having a watershed moment. And it's become, if anything, too big to ignore. Some people will say they knew it all
That's
along,
fair.
and that they were going to do this. But actually, it's reached a point where I think just the balance of power has shifted creatively. And you've got this whole new breed of companies emerging that are so kind of unique compared to the traditional advertising agency model. And then, of course, you've got swathes of individual creators that have just as much media reach as a TV kind of ad would have in a 30-second spot. And we decided to tackle this as our latest deep dive because of the conversations we're having with clients. So one of the things that we do is help brands identify kind of where it is that they're maybe underpowered in terms of their marketing organization and what disciplines they either need to hire for or find a partner for. And it's not necessarily that social, that the brands have been bad at social, but what I think many are realizing is that social has been underutilized. And so we've seen this. A lot of the conversations we're having are with brands looking for an agency to help them power up and help them tap into social in a bigger way. And then in February this year, we had the announcement from Unilever's new CEO, Frederic Fernandez, I think. I forget the name.
Right.
Anyway, coming out with a really bold claim, right? They're going to increase their spend on social to 50% of their total marketing budget. And he set a kind of audacious goal of having 20,000 influencers in India alone, and really kind of fragmenting and getting
That's wild.
In an army, essentially, of people to be the spokesperson or the ambassador for their products and their brands. And as much as Unilever is an outlier because they are one of the biggest advertisers in the world, it's definitely a bit of a bellwether for what we'd already been seeing and how actually social fundamentally can and should be at the center of the marketing system, not an add-on, which I think has been the case for a very long time. But in the past 24 months, especially, there's been a maturity. We've really figured out how to get the best out of creator work and influencers. And so it's reached that tipping point, that watershed, where brands, some are doing it already, some are trying to catch up, some have just undercooked it for a long time. But really rewiring their entire kind of marketing approach so that social sits at the center of it, because it's not just a content or communications platform anymore. It's full funnel, it's brand building, it's performance, it's conversion, it's insights done right. And so there's this evolution, this maturity that's taken place. And we wanted to document that in the deep dive to provide essentially our view, having talked to a lot of marketeers, and then also surfaced what we see as some of the best work across the industry from, of course, independent agencies, for other marketeers to learn from, for them to go and take this back and hopefully apply it to their day job, as well as try to elevate the status and the importance strategically of social at the brands that they're working at.
So let's go. So the C-suite loves data. They love numbers. But I think that brands, you mentioned that brands are stuck measuring these vanity metrics, and they're not really understanding that the real value happens elsewhere. So let's talk a little bit about where traditional metrics might have killed a campaign, but the business impact was massive, and what brands, and then also what indies, just agencies in general, but specifically indies, what should we be looking at measure wise? Because you have some data here from System One. Hello, Andrew. So walk us through a little bit on that end, because it feels like we're in that brackish water now where the churn is like, oh, okay, we were measuring vanity metrics over here. Now it's like, oh God, holy shit, we really have to we really have to make this work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think System One and TikTok, and there's also been some research from Waylar and Kantar recently that have,
Right.
I suppose, shed a light on what the best practices are for actually driving performance.
Right.
So the stat, obviously, on this slide here that you've brought up, shows that out of 900 campaigns across eight markets, those that had kind of sales dominant messaging drove 88% higher conversion than those with fewer kind of sales driven messages.
Right.
Now, what's interesting is that those messages also have long-term brand building effects. So it's not one or the other. And it's very, I think, easy. We've got some great case studies about this, such as P. Louise, who did a live shopping marathon and did $2 million of sales in a 12-hour window, which broke the world record. There's David Protein Bars, who have shifted 50,000 bars. I think it's very easy to get kind of like starry-eyed by the sales-driven case studies. And of course, they're impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is more important is that social is full funnel. It's a way to gather insights. It's a way to test creative ideas. It's a way to have direct feedback in real time.
Yep.
As well as now, and we've seen obviously TikTok Shop, YouTube Shopping, Snap have launched their shopping offering as well. There's that marketplace element as well, where you're essentially capturing the demand of a captive audience. And so all the way through, with the right strategy that ladders back up to business objectives, this is what we're saying, that actually this is why CEOs, boards, CFOs should pay attention, because of course the sales are attractive, but then there's other ways of managing reputation or learning more about the customer and responding to what the market's telling them, like social being the canary in the coal mine almost. So vanity metrics, I think before would have been more around just like how many views are we getting, right? But I think the way that the algorithms and the platforms are changing right now, follower count is one thing, but the quality of your content is the most important thing, because that's what's going to drive engagement and virality for those that can achieve it, regardless of whether you have 1,000 followers or 1 million followers.
Right.
And so those are the vanity metrics. Sales obviously is very easy to make a case when you're talking to the more financially driven folks. But I think it's the wider value that social can bring because of the direct connection with the consumer. And that's nothing new, but I think it's reached a point now where the tools, the agencies, the platforms are so capable of helping a brand grow stratospherically without ever touching any traditional media.
Right.
And if it's a supplement to traditional media, then that's even more exciting.
Right. So I want to stick with this for a second. So let's say one thing to point out here is that where I'm going with this is I'm running an agency. I'm hearing all of this. I also have a really great creative team, and they might start grousing about some of this. So one thing that to think about is understanding that you don't necessarily have to sacrifice creativity, because again, there's this perception, and I think the perceptions are being broken that, you know what, things are changing. There's the influencer side of it, but the things that a brand controls and that an agency controls, there still retains. You can still be creative, and good agencies are. It's not like a Super Bowl ad, right? And that's a really important distinction here. I'm curious about how an agency, and specifically an indie, how they're looking at this going, all right, how do I really create a commercial engine like this? So thinking about, the creative side of it too is a little bit of a subplot. What are 3 things that agencies need to stop doing and start doing to start building that, so that they can go to their clients, their existing clients, for example, and say, okay, we've been doing social, or we've been doing all of this one way, but we're going to try this now. And here's the research that backs up that we're going to do it this way to help you grow.
Yeah. Do you know what, Doug? I think actually the independent agencies in this space are killing it.
Oh, of course they are. No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one sector of the agency market where it's clear that the independent scene is where you should prioritize your search if you are thinking about looking for a new agency, or kind of finding one for the first time. Like that's blindingly obvious from all the research we've done.
Right.
In the deep dive itself, there's an agency landscape section that we've created that covers UK agencies. We're going to do the same for the US as well. I think you've got the great thing about social is that you can do things like in fairly small, discrete tests.
Mm-hmm.
And a quote from Sarah Sutton, who's the global media director at Oatly, is something that kind of has stuck with me. I don't think we've got it in a deep dive, but we interviewed her, and it was kind of like, beg for forgiveness, don't ask for permission.
Sure.
So sometimes you've just got to kind of put yourself out there and do something, maybe work with a creator, and then prove just how effective that's been, and take those results back to the business. I think in terms of like what to stop doing, I think it's like focusing just on output. Like what I've learned, what we've also discovered is that agencies that just focus on content, that part of the segment is saturated. There are lots of people that do that, and I think those are the ones that, unless they evolve, might get left behind. Of course, there are lots of brands out there that probably need just that, but as we know, brands are inclined to take things in house when they figure out how to kind of to do those things, and content production it seems ripe for that, AI or not, right?
Right.
So I think just focusing on stop focusing just on output, stop chasing the vanity metrics as we talked about, and I think with creators especially, like, stop treating that as a transactional media buy, and really kind of impress upon clients that one-off creative partnerships are higher risk than micro bets. And that misses the genuine credibility and the kind of the pull and the creative opportunity that you have, compared to something that's maybe been set up over time, and then where the creator has more of a connection with the brand and the story, of course. So sorry, I went off
No, it's fine.
Forward a bit there, but I think generally, like, agencies, like, they genuinely are killing it. Whether it's like a full service social agency that can be your insight, do the strategy, the insights piece, the content, bit of paid, bit of influencer, and then you've got specialists that focus on a particular community or a particular sector or a particular style. And then, of course, influencer specialists, boutique agencies. There's a swathe of agencies out there that are really doing well. So I feel like they don't need too much advice, which is why I'm somewhat reticent to say
no. But I get it. But it's, I mean, I agree. I think in the indie space, I will say this: there's always room. There's more creative ambition. There are a lot of things that stack up in indie's favor. But I do want to. So one thing that is a challenge is always the budget, right? So if you're an indie, you're sitting there going, "Ooh, we don't have much to work with." But I love this slide 10, because 5x5, they're members. Thank you. But here was the kicker. For the boardroom, the proposition is equity is an operating system, not a seasonal stunt, not only cheaper, but compounding, which I love. I probably would have written like 8 paragraphs to get to that point, but clearly you're better at brevity and levity. But I mean, this is another really important thing for agencies to understand is as you build, and I do agree wholeheartedly that building this as an operating system and really almost merchandising it that way, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it like your thing, but I mean, you're going to be able to go in and say, all right, we're cracking this. And the thing is to be proactive about it too. Agencies in general play defense. I think indies are playing more offense now than ever, which is great, and I love seeing it. But talk about this slide and the importance of understanding always on vis-a-vis. And listen, the world still needs Super Bowl commercials. They still need X, Y, and Z, right? But this is really interesting to me, and I'm pointing because my screen is over here instead of me going like that. But dig into this slide a little bit, because that's a powerful thing to be able to say to the C-suite.
It definitely is, and I think always on is a key phrase. I think if we think of it through an agency's eyes, being the agency of record is probably more likely now, and going forward, increasingly so, when you're a social first agency versus maybe as recent as 5, maybe probably 10 years ago, the ad agency was the agency of record, right?
Right.
We all know about the shift to project-based work, and there's also now academic research that proves that you need a great campaign and then you keep that running for 3 to 5 years. You don't need to change it. So all of a sudden, the advertising agency model is under pressure, and we've seen how the project-based shift is putting pressure on that business model. But social, by its very nature, is always on, and so your strategy, which means it's a board level kind of mandate and pillar,
right,
means that this is our way of understanding what our current customers, our future customers are thinking, feeling, doing, saying, buying. Right. And then it's our way of not only acquiring them, but also retaining them and building community. So this is why that kind of always on, like the very nature, like we are, whether we like it or not, we're in a game of attention, right? And to maintain attention by social is much easier than to maintain attention when you don't have much budget and you're focusing on the more traditional media. Not to say that those aren't powerful, of course, they still are. But social, I think for many brands, has been the place where the cut down of the TV ad or the repurposed and reformatted assets of the billboard of the print ad go to be posted. But actually, think about flipping that, right? If you've got great strategically driven organic content always on, whether that's daily or weekly or monthly, whatever the frequency may be, that's the test bed, isn't it? Because the stuff that you get engagement with, you get virality for, should inform the creative stuff that you're then putting into the bigger, broad reach and frequency based kind of traditional media. So it totally flips on its head. It becomes a business kind of set of business signals. Right. Of course, a way to entertain and remain relevant, but then, of course, a way to acquire and keep your customers.
I don't want to be reductive here, but I might be. I mean, it's common sense.
Right.
I still don't understand. I don't understand brands that, and here's in my experience in watching agencies really, press this, they will end up getting stiff-armed by the client and by the brand. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to hear because that there is a strategist that's just foaming at the mouth to do this and this and this. And then you have creatives that are like, oh, we're going to do it. And then the client's like, nope, we're going to do a TV spot. Then you're going to cut it down. We're going to act like it's 2016. We're going to cut that down. Actually, more like 2012, if we're being honest.
Yeah. And look, I have a theory for this. I think, and part of the reason we're doing what we're doing as a business, but also things like the deep dive,
right,
is to challenge the status quo, right?
Sure.
And for so long, if you think about what you're doing with Indie Agency News and what we're doing, and others are starting to, like, our traditional media, press, awards, etc., have for so long been oriented around the holding company model.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the holding company model is still very much wedded to, well, we're gonna make money by selling lots of media for broadcast, right, or traditional, as well as conceive the ideas and produce them. And I've got friends who've sold their social first agencies to holding companies within the past 18 months, and they've gone in to two different holding companies, and they've been flabbergasted at just how much of an afterthought. It's changing, of course.
Yeah.
But they have been.
Oh, don't try to pad it. Look at you.
Fine, I won't pad it. It's bullshit. It's rubbish. Yeah, and they're flabbergasted at just how much of an afterthought social still is, and how it's not been more front and center, or at least been elevated in status. But as I said, this year is definitely a tipping point. And look, some marketers will probably be reading the deep dive, or maybe seeing this conversation and going, yeah, it is so obvious. We're already doing all of this.
Right.
But I think they're in the minority. And I think, well, I always like to categorize clients.
It's more like a silent majority. Yeah.
Yeah. There are those that are doing it already, and they're thinking about how to stay ahead through different things. And then there are those that are there or thereabouts, but they want to kind of get ahead. And then there are those that are looking to catch up. And I think the vast majority of clients are either trying to catch up or kind of figure out how to get ahead. And there's still lots of untapped opportunity. But it does take a fundamental, like I said, rewiring to put social at the center.
Yeah.
Not slightly earlier on, or
no.
Get a bit more weight, even though it's still an add-on. So no, it's the center. How do we design for this attention?
It's the same with PR, by the way. Like, that used to be my biggest frustration. Social needs to be in the center, but as it relates to like comms and PR, I've watched amazing things happen when you bring your comms and PR people in early, because then they're ruminating on it, and they may be able to, and I've seen this, adding something that's better. Right. And it's like, oh, we never thought of it that way. Every brain within an organization, especially an agency and a smaller indie agency, and we know this, they all matter. And the earlier you bring them in the process, ultimately, the better it becomes. And then the other part of that too is once a client sees that, they're looking at it and thinking, oh, they're really on top of this. Therefore, we're going to spend 25%. We were going to go do something else, but you really impressed us. So the lesson here is, bring all the brains in, put social at the center. If you're an indie agency, if you had one thing to say to your client that might be, number one, thinking that social is an add-on, not understanding the efficacy and the importance of it. If you're an indie, what's the one thing that you say to that client to get them off the fence? Let's use this as the really deep advice. Maybe it's a soundbite, but what would you say? Because there's a million things you could say, but what in your mind is, in your belief, is the one thing that an indie should say to their client to say, this is really important and here's why?
Read the deep dive, simply.
I love it.
And I say that,
and it's true. No, it's true. I'm not kidding.
Because it is true, because I can't come up with a better answer. Off the top of my head. But genuinely, like, you've got to look at what other brands are doing, and not that it's about copying and imitating always, but you've got to help them see the opportunity, right? And what I've learned doing this work for the last couple of years is that every brand's need is so varied, right? The situational, like, context is always so different. So it depends on what category that the client falls into, right? So it's always like, okay, what are other brands doing? What is the opportunity here? Not this is what we can do as an agency for you. It's what is the opportunity for your brand? Because we're seeing some really exciting stuff happen. And we want to help you tap into that, because ultimately marketeers are looking to prove themselves, right? They're constantly under pressure to prove themselves, grow their brands, whether it's through relevancy or sales or all of the above. So I think it's got to be that, having that grown-up conversation. What's your business context right now? What have you been doing?
The grown-up conversation.
And whereas, that's it, right? It's no longer just a content bucket to fill. It's how can we help you solve a business challenge? Because we're seeing others do this through social, and budgets big or small or medium sized, we think we can tap into this in a really effective way.
We were just focusing on part 1 today, so part 2 we'll discuss later. Would you like to give us your top 5 for the Premier League finishers this year?
Arsenal, obviously, number 1. I would hope. I think it's going to happen is another thing, but I don't want someone tapping me on the shoulder to say, hey, why didn't you say Arsenal? Liverpool, more likely. Chelsea, Spurs, top 4.
Spurs?
Unfortunately, I think they will have a good season. I think they've got the right manager.
I say Villa. Villa's up there. I think Nottingham Forest.
Forest are good. I think
Brighton always is in it until at least February.
Newcastle you got to watch out for. I think they'll probably sneak.
It's going to be interesting this year. I think it's going to be interesting.
Should be.
I just hope that the delta isn't too big between Liverpool and everybody else, so that everyone has a shot.
It definitely is in terms of spend so far, right?
But I'm optimistic.
So good to see you, Doug. And thank you for this. Really enjoyed it.
Pleasure as well. Yeah, we'll catch up on part 2. We'll have a recap of our conversation, plus a link to this deep dive. Stay backstage for a second so I can wrap this up. This isn't a Zoom call. Thanks for joining us.
Ciao.
All right. On behalf of everybody at Indie Agency News, I'm Doug Zanger. A reminder, go to indieagency.news/join if you'd like to learn more about membership. We're closing in on 290 members around the world, and we're set to introduce some new members from Australia, some from Toronto, and some from the rest of the United States as well. We have shows tomorrow. We have shows Thursday. We have shows Friday. It's a very exciting week. And on behalf of Kyle O'Brien, Jess Ferris, and Angela Natividad, our team here at Indie Agency News, thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.